Yo guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're benchmarking the Cyberpunk 2077 with my newly acquired overclocked MSI Vanguard RTX 5090 graphics card and Ryzen 9 9950X for CPU. So firstly, as always, I'll start off by showing you the graphics settings really quickly. So we are running a resolution of 3040 by 2160 on my 4K 134Hz display. We're running HDR10, you may wait 2 or 3 days for that to process on YouTube. And video lower pixel latency is enabled. We are running DLSS super resolution transformer model set to quality mode, so 1440p render resolution. DLSS ray reconstruction is turned on. Frame generation is currently off, we will enable it a little bit later in the video. Ray tracing and ray path tracing is enabled. Film graining chromatic aberration is turned off, 100% field of view. And all the advanced graphics settings are all ultra high preset with psycho screen face reflections. Everything else fully maxed out. So we're going to test 4K, 4K native, 4K with DLSS quality mode, and then we'll test out 1440p and 1080p native resolution to see how everything runs in place. But we're finally here, guys. We finally have the RTX 5090 graphics card after such a long wait, and I greatly appreciate everybody's patience during the time I was waiting to finally acquire this graphics card. But we're finally here, and we're finally testing, and do stay tuned for many, many more benchmarks to come of this RTX 5090 graphics card. I will tell you one thing though, this MSI Vanguard runs very, very quietly. There's no coil whine, no significant fan noise, and temperatures are reasonable. I did notice when you run this game natively at 4K, it will pull a whole lot more wattage and it will heat up a lot more. But overall, it runs very manageable and like I said, very quiet, no fan noise. Definitely quieter than the Asus Astral 5080. And overall, very happy to finally have the RTX 5090 graphics card. So 4K with DLSS quality mode, we've seen the averaging around 58 FPS, 1% low sitting at 45, and max FPS of 63 FPS. Alright, now the test really begins to test out 4K native, which is going to really push the GPU here. So we're going to do native 4K. No frame gen. Reset the afterburner. And just barely scraping by 29 to 31 FPS. Just barely. But hey, it is somewhat playable. It's kind of like a console experience, if anything. Only we're having all the full ray tracing effects with no upscaling and just beautiful 4K resolution. Not exactly the most playable, but hey, it does run. And we're pulling 21 gigabytes of VRAM, so having that 32 gigabyte frame buffer is going to be very helpful for future games, especially when testing out 8K, which I will be testing out in future videos soon enough. So even on an RTX 5090 graphics card, 4K native of Cyberpunk 2077, barely getting by 30 FPS average, 1% low so you get 25, and max FPS at 35. Okay, so now let's go back to DLSS quality mode. We'll enable 2x frame generation, and I'm not gonna use 3x or 4x. I just want to focus on the lower end version of frame gen here. And disregard the frame timing graph. It is gonna show a incorrect amount in frame timing, but that's normal when using frame generation. Seems to be a glitch with NVIDIA cards. I don't know if they'll fix it or not, but disregard that. So we will test out 4K, 1440p native and 1080p native resolutions, and we'll experiment with different variations of DLSS quality mode. And overall, like I said, I'm very happy, and here we are, finally playing Cyberpunk 2077. I'm going to reset the afterburner stats there, because that 1% low was a little bit off there. So average FPS of 105, 1% low sitting at 45, which is probably incorrect because of maybe a spike possibly that dropped FPS. Max FPS at 113. Okay, let's disable frame gen, so let's turn it off. And we'll go back to DLA mode here. And let's go down to 1440p render resolution. Reset the afterburner. Now on my 4K data screen, it does take a nosedive in picture quality. And we're barely getting by, just barely touching 60 FPS here on 1440p native. Which goes to show you how heavy this title really is. I also wanted to mention we will also test out Dogtown, so Phantom Liberty expansion, which is known to be a heavier area to run. So we will test it out a little bit later in the video before finishing up with Night City here. So 1440p native, averaging 57 FPS, 1% low sitting at 45, max FPS is 62. And then very briefly, we'll test out DLSS quality mode. There's one person who watches my videos who'd like to see DLSS quality mode at lower resolution, so we'll go ahead and enable that. Reset the afterburner. And that puts us at 93 FPS average, 1% low state at 65, max FPS at 97. Alright, go back to native, and then let's go down to 1080p, which is probably going to be bottlenecked because obviously, you know, 5090 is not really designed to run at 1080p, but we'll test it just for fun here to see how it runs and plays. And then we'll load up the Dogtown map to see how that will run at the different resolutions and frame gen. So yeah, again, 1080p is not really a good resolution to run the 5090. Obviously, it's a very high-end card designed for 4K. But in terms of average, 87 FPS, 1% low sitting at 55, max FPS of 94 here. Okay, let's go back up to 4K here. And we will do DLSS quality mode. And then let me go ahead and load up Dogtown here. And we'll do the same test that we tested in Night City here. At 4K DLSS quality mode, 4K of frame gen, and then we'll test out 1440p and 1080p resolution to see how everything runs in place. Reset the afterburner. Now Dogtown, like I said, is obviously a heavier area to render, so it probably will be a little bit lower FPS, but I figured we'd test Dogtown and Night City to see how all the resolutions run and play, and we'll take things from there. So 4K with DLSS quality mode, averaging 56 FPS, 1% low sitting at 41, max FPS is 62. Alright, let's turn on frame gen. And I'm not going to do multi-frame like 3x or 4x, I'm just going to stick with 2x for now. Maybe another video. But I'm not a big fan of the higher than 2x frame gen. Reset the afterburner one more time here. Not sure why the 1% lows keep getting so low. I'm not really sure why. It seemed to happen when I enable frame gen. Reset one more time here. It's kind of weird. But we're averaging 98 FPS, 1% low sitting at 38, max FPS at 103. And then for the real test, like we did the last video, or last area. We're going to test out DLA mode, which will be native 4K. And then watch that power draw. The power draw is going to be like insane. Reset the afterburner. And I've seen the power draw get up to 607 watts max so far I've seen when running 4K native in Cyberpunk 2077. So we'll see what it gets up to here. And in terms of FPS, we're barely scraping by 29 FPS here average. 585 watts, 587, 603, 604. So yeah, it definitely pulls a lot more wattage at native 4K. So this title is a very heavy title to run at native resolutions, as you can see here. Looks beautiful, but doesn't exactly run too well. But in terms of graphically, it looks really, really nice. But definitely not the way to play it, but it is a good test. And pulling 23 gigabytes of VRAM, which is insane. Really insane. So average 28, 1% low sitting at 23, and max FPS at 31. Alright, let's go lower the resolution to 1440p here. Reset the afterburner. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's an issue with the 1% low. It seems like they're a little bit lower than they should, I think. At least I would assume that's lower than it should. But 1440p native, averaging 55 FPS. 1% low sitting at 41, max FPS at 85. And then very briefly, I'm going to enable DLSS calls mode here. One person likes me to test it out, so we'll go ahead and enable that. Reset the afterburner. I'm going to reset one more time here because that max FPS is probably off. Probably had a spike. I always want to try to get an accurate reading here as much as possible to gauge how everything runs. So 1440p with DLSS calls mode, averaging 87 FPS, 1% low sitting at 55, and max FPS at 92. Alright, let's go back to DLA mode. And we'll go down to 1080p, which is again not something I'd recommend, but I know some people will want to see it, so here we are, testing 1080p on a 5090. And obviously it's pulling a whole lot less wattage because it's putting more load on the CPU here. So 1080p averaging 76 FPS, 1% low sitting at 51, and max FPS at 81. Alright, let's go back to 4K here, and we'll enable DLSS quality mode. And we'll leave it here the remainder of the video. Reset the afterburner. Reset one more time there, because that spike. And I think there you have it, guys. That shows you how the RTX 5090 graphics card runs on Cyberpunk 2077. If you did enjoy the video, you can give this video a like. If you want to see more content like this, more MSI Vanguard RTX 5090 gaming benchmarks, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. Stay tuned for more videos soon enough. I'll be definitely making more videos benchmarking this 5090 graphics card, and I look forward to bringing you guys the videos. Thanks for watching. Appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys for another video presentation soon enough. And I'll bring to you Cyberpunk 2077 with my Vanguard RTX 5090 graphics card. See you guys around, and thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.